A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
With great sadness, I'd like to say one of our hosts on every Sunday, Lou Dobbs, has passed away, and 78 years old. He was in great shape. He loved America. And Tony Carbonetti, you worked with Lou at all?
Yeah, our condolences to the family. Yeah. I mean, a great loss, fine man.
He was a true gentleman, a great journalist, and a close friend of President Trump.
And President Trump tweeted it out, and
he announced on his social.
And I just can't believe it. I just talked to him a few days, and it's so sad.
Time is precious, John. Time is precious.
And, geez, I am put away on it. And
it's a great loss for all of us.
Great loss for America.
Absolutely.
Great loss for everybody. And he always said it the way he said it.
And he understood public policy. He understood politics. He understood economics. Yeah. He was really a first-rate journalist.
This is John Catsimatidis broadcasting out of New York, along with Tony Carbonetti, former chief of staff to Rudy Giuliani, Mayor Giuliani, and Judge Richard Weinberg, and broadcasting out of Milwaukee, we have our co-host, we have Rita Cosby. How are you? How's Milwaukee?
You know what? It has been incredible here, but I first want to say I knew Lou for probably about 20 years, John. So it has been heartbreaking to hear this news, too, and everybody here talking about the loss of the great Lou Dobbs. The mood here, I will tell you, overall, aside for obviously that terrible news, has been very, very just energized. The Republican Party is unified. That's the message. And tonight is the big show, John. We're going to be hearing from former President Donald Trump, and if you look at the polls, likely the next president of the United States. And it comes as there is complete disarray on the Democratic side.
A lot of disarray on the Democratic side, and I think we're going to have a few people talk about it.
Absolutely, John. So much. We're going to be, in fact, tonight, you guys, we have an action-packed show here from Milwaukee and, of course, back there in New York. We're going to have joining us, John, in just a few seconds, Senator Marco Rubio from the great state of Florida. We have John Solomon with some big news on the shooter. Of course, so many questions today. Monica Crowley's joining us, Congressman Tim Burchett. And also, we are going to be talking with Dick Morris. We have an action-packed show.
And Ralph Reed promised us to show up. Let's see if Ralph Reed shows up.
Exactly. The biggest religious leader in the United States.
First of all, I got Tony Carbonetti here, and he, Tony, the Secret Service. Look, you are a pretty good guy that interprets what happened. I mean, you were Mayor Giuliani's chief of staff.
John,
you ran New York City for a while.
More than one NYPD briefings in my lifetime. And the number of mistakes that you just see that are glaring. I mean, forget where the sniper was from. There was a water tower behind that. That's high ground. You should have had two guys up there with binoculars. You don't cede anything to local authority that is not trained. When they're doing something in New York City, the NYPD is properly trained to assist the Secret Service. They do so all the time. I would trust the NYPD and do trust the NYPD with my life. You don't go to these small towns, and you can't expect them, who have not had proper training, to do the work of a Secret Service agent.
They say that they were pointing it out to other people that there was a man with a gun on top of the roof, Tony.
When they do this report, John, the other thing, that iconic moment that we saw where President Trump stands up and yells, fight, fight, and puts his stuff. He should not have been allowed to get back up.
That's exactly right,
okay?
Tony.
When they take you down, exactly, Judge. When they take you down, John, that bunting you see is bulletproof. There's bulletproof plexiglass behind that. They're literally supposed to drag you along underneath in a safe and then put you in the car. He should not have been allowed to get back up. I mean, we all love that moment. It's an iconic moment. But for his own protection, there could have been two or three other shooters.
Unbelievable.
The breakdown is, I'm telling you, this woman's got a lot to answer for.
Well, let's go back to Milwaukee. Rita, is Marco Rubio there yet?
And joining us here on Katz and Cosby as we are at the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee is none other than the great Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator Rubio, great to have you here on the show. Talk about just how important this night is tonight. In just a matter of hours from now, we're going to hear from the former President of the United States, very likely the future one based on the polls. This is a powerful moment for not just the Republican Party, but for America.
Well, first of all, it's always fun to talk to future Floridians on the broadcast. So
we're looking at coming there, believe me.
I know. Well, we'll get our fair share for sure. But it's been a great convention. I've been to 5 conventions, beginning in '96 when I was a volunteer working at the convention. And this is by far the best one. The most unified party, the most enthusiastic party. The most confident party. And I think that's going to bode well. I mean, look, I think every party will tell you they feel great coming out of their conventions, but this is probably the best political convention Republicans have had since 1984. And I think that probably the best Democratic convention they had was in 2008 with Obama. You know, that one? This one's probably better than that one in my view. But nonetheless, I mean, I think we have a lot to feel good about. But look, there's still 100-something days left in this election. Frankly, at this moment, we don't know who President Trump's opponent is going to be. But I don't really think it matters. In the end, I don't think people are going to be voting for Trump because of Biden or Kamala Harris. I think they're going to vote for him because he's the only one running that's made them a priority, people a priority, not ideology, but them, the people. And I think that makes him a unique candidate in the modern political history of our country. And it's the reason why I think he's going to be our president again. What could be a pretty big victory if things play out.
Well, and speaking of which, so much so that former President Obama came out and has been quoted left and right saying that he's trying to push President Biden out. We've heard reports from everywhere. You just brought up it's what a juxtaposition from the unification and the energy here, and it seems like the Democrats are in complete disarray.
Well, and also they're hypocrites, right? Because they talk about how they're the defenders of democracy, but 14 million Democrats voted for Biden in a primary, and then here come 8 to 10 of their in-party elders, self-appointed party elders, and they come in and basically decide we're going to push our nominee out of the way. I mean, that doesn't sound very democratic to me. That sounds, kind of Soviet. So I would just tell you that that's their problem to figure out. But they are the ones that covered this up. They knew what Biden's condition was, and they covered it up until they couldn't cover it up anymore. They covered it up by lying. And I would say if you're going to remove him as a candidate, you got to remove him as president, because candidate is the easy part. President is the hard part. How can he continue as president? So, they got a lot to answer for.
You're on so many key committees, and you talk about that. There's such huge security issues happening in the world right now. We look at what's happening, of course, in the Middle East. We look at Ukraine, and we look at our wide-open southern border, which I know, Senator Rubio, you understand all too well. How important is it to have a commander-in-chief who really has his finger on the pulse? And all I think about is if President Trump comes in, he's got a lot to clean up.
Let me tell you a story, because I was kind of tangentially around this when it happened. President Trump warned the Iranians that no American should die. And they didn't listen. They tested him. And an American contractor died in a missile attack by one of their proxy groups in Iraq. They then tried to storm our embassy. They tried to do a Benghazi in Baghdad, and he said that wasn't going to happen. He surged forces and blew that back. And then he said, all right, 48 hours later, Soleimani was dead. And they were all shocked, because Soleimani's an untouchable guy. Soleimani was such an arrogant guy that he flew into Baghdad in a commercial flight, jumped in a car that some guy just picked him up off the curb, no security detail. He had no fear, and then he was gone. The Iranians calmed down a lot after that happened. A lot. They really calmed down. Like, we didn't have the problems we had with them after that point. And, they did some symbolic thing, and they messaged very clearly, this is going to be symbolic. We don't want this to escalate. And it was over. I get it. I wish we lived in a world where people could have a meeting at the UN and work this out. But there are parts of this world where the people you're dealing with only understand strength. They respect strength. They may hate your guts, but they understand strength, and they are encouraged and emboldened by weakness. And right now, we appear weak. We just do. People view Biden as weak. Our enemies view him as weak. And that's why Putin starts an invasion. That's why the Taliban humiliated us. That's why China is intimidating the Philippines and Taiwan aggressively every single day. That's why I'm convinced what happened on October 7th happens. And what could happen now with Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is even far more dangerous. So it is what the real dangers in the world are dealt with through a position of strength, not weakness. And I think Trump always kind of instinctively understood that in a way that sometimes people like Joe Biden, both because of the condition he's in and because of the people he's surrounded by, don't get. And it's put our country in great harm, and it's done tremendous damage to our global reputation.
Absolutely. Well, Senator Marco Rubio, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to see you here at the Republican National Convention. Thank you.
Thank you. Great doing this with you.
Breaking news, WABC.
Well, some more sad news. I feel like I run the obituary department. Bob Newhart has just passed away. And I was going to go to his... where do you have that hotel? Up in, was it New Hampshire or Vermont?
Vermont.
I mean,
great show.
That was a great show.
He was just one of the great comedians.
He was a great guy, 94 years old.
John, my name is not on the list in front of you, is it? I just want to make sure.
No.
Just making sure.
I mean,
you need an eraser?
I hate doing this. I mean, I'm telling you. Are we losing more people faster?
94 I'll sign up for.
Yeah.
Lou Dobbs, very sad.
Right now, let's go back to Milwaukee. I believe that Rita Cosby has John Solomon. Back to Milwaukee with Rita.
And with us right now, a major Republican star, and that is the Florida Senator.
Well, we're back. Well, that was Dominic Carter on one of our other...
Everybody's grabbing Senator Rubio.
No, that was Dominic Carter on one of our other stations that we have. And I think Dominic Carter was doing Marco Rubio. And where is Rita? Is Rita on the phone?
Yeah, I am here. We're waiting for John Solomon. And by the way, we will also be talking with Kimberly Guilfoyle shortly.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so we got an action-packed show here, John, and we'll be talking with John Solomon, I believe.
Is John Solomon there yet?
Rita, what's your sense of the security down there today? Does it seem like there's more today than the other 2 days?
Oh, it is massive, guys. I can tell you, they have rerouted us left and right. In fact, I was right behind, I think, the president's motorcade just about 2 hours ago. And there are thousands upon thousands of officers.
Tony, I
want to go back to also what you said earlier about the shooting, because everybody is talking about the shooting, and the director of the Secret Service is here, but she's been running away from members of Congress. And that is also in part, there are new details that they actually spotted the shooter 1 hour before. They spotted a guy who was very suspicious. They took pictures
Rita,
of him.
His mother and father were calling the police saying, my son's up to no good. Go find him.
Yes. I mean, just because your 20-year-old son is missing, do you call the police? Clearly there was a history there, too. They don't have a criminal record, but boy.
I like to say you need to wait till the report's in, but some of the things we're hearing, where if they had a concern, why'd they let him even go on stage?
Well, that's the point. They never should have let him up on the stage.
If they're looking for a potential threat, you don't put him on the stage.
But it raises a question, Tony and Rita. Why wasn't there communication from one end of the field to the other? Why didn't they know on stage? You're going to claim they didn't know. That's the failure of the observers to bring it back to the stage.
But did you know what, Judge, though? If you have, and all of us have been at many a White House event, I have been at so many campaign rallies, they went and did advance work. Then they show up, they find out that there's a suspicious guy with a rangefinder, which is what you use when you're at the golf range to see how far you can either hit the ball or shoot. So they see somebody with a suspicious item, they take pictures of him. Why? You hit it on the head, Judge. Why would you ever let the president on the stage?
Rita, I understand you got Monica Crowley walking up to your desk, too?
And joining us now here live on Katz and Cosby right here from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee is the great political guru and also former Trump senior official, Monica Crowley. Monica, first of all, so much happening with President Trump's side. It looks like, boy, things are so unified here in Milwaukee, and what a contrast to what's happening on the Democratic side. Your take.
Well, it's so great to be here with you, Rita. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I mean, the last 5 days have seemed like an eternity from the time those bullets started flying at President Trump Saturday afternoon to where we are tonight, where President Trump is going to accept his party's nomination for the third time in 9 years. It's been an astonishing journey. And I will say, I've been to several Republican conventions over the years, Rita, as I know you have as well. And what's amazing about this is it almost has the feel of like a spiritual revival, that people are, that the energy is just so electric, and that people are so behind President Trump and now the Trump-Vance ticket. But even more importantly, there is a tremendous sense of gratitude here because of the events of last Saturday. People are so grateful that President Trump is still with us and that he is leading this party in a unified form, and he is going to lead the country for the next 4 years.
What do you think we're going to hear tonight from him? Because as we've been seeing him in the arena, he's much more pensive. He seems much more just moved. How could it not be? That was a life-altering event, Monica Crowley.
Yes, 100%. And it does look to me, and again, obviously, I'm taking this by faith. I have no proof, but it looks to me like God touched his heart. He does look like a profoundly changed man. That doesn't mean he's not still the fierce fighter that he has always been and always will be, but it does look like he's had some sort of spiritual experience here and gotten closer to God. And also, I think in any situation like this, people who have open hearts, as President Trump has, understands the nature of good versus evil a lot clearer when they are subjected to a situation like he was subjected to, where he was almost assassinated on live television. I think the moral clarity has become much more distinct and clear for him about the stakes of this election, about the true nature of this war, which of course is political and secular, but there is a spiritual element to this war. I think, and again, I haven't spoken to him about it. It's me speculating, but just seeing his face, seeing the way he's carrying himself, it does seem that he has had some sort of transformation. That is very positive.
Side? Yeah, for sure. What about on the Democratic side, though? Because we are hearing there's so many reports today that President Obama is now privately saying, you know what, there's no path for you here. Nancy Pelosi, we've heard all these other comments, and there are reports out there that President Biden may be being pushed out or acquiescing, shoved out. It's a good way to say it, Monica, potentially in the next few days.
Yeah, and it could. I mean, listen, it could come tonight. I mean, what a way to stick it to President Trump by calling an emergency Oval Office address at 9 o'clock Eastern time, right? I don't think that will be the case. I think it may wind out over the next couple of days because there is a negotiation happening. Joe Biden has huge leverage. He is the sitting president. He controls all of the delegates. He's sitting on top of $280 billion that has been raised, right? So he is sitting on all of this leverage, and he's not just going to give it up. So there's a negotiation in terms of money for a presidential library, all the things that I'm hearing from different sources that Jill and Joe Biden are working on that they want. And again, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard from good sources they want $100 million for their family. They want $2 billion for a presidential library. You know, they want Joe to be able to pardon Hunter and pardon himself before he leaves office. And he wants to stay in office through January 20th of next year. He does not want to be forced to resign the presidency. But again, Rita, I mean, if he is not well enough to run for president, how is he well enough to carry out the job between now and January? You know, another 6 months.
Absolutely.
He is not capable. But, you know, when I heard that Obama stuck the shiv in Joe Biden politically, today I said it's over because the Obamas control this party. And it's reminiscent of my old boss, President Nixon, who during Watergate, it was a member of his own party, Barry Goldwater, the leader of the GOP in the Senate, who went to him in the White House and said, your base of support has fallen apart in the Senate, and so you will not survive an impeachment. It's when the members of your own party, like Obama and Pelosi and Schumer and the others, come to him and say, we can no longer support you, you have no support, that's when you know it's over. And I think we're at that moment.
Yeah, wow, it feels that way too. Monica Crowley, really great to have you here at the RNC with me in Milwaukee.
Always a pleasure, Rita. Thank you.
Well, John Catsimatidis back in New York, and Tony Carbonetti and Richard Weinberg, Judge Weinberg. I should always give you that title.
Well, thank you.
And Chief Carbonetti. We're going to go to a break right now, and I understand Rita is going to have Ralph Reed in Milwaukee. Let's go to a break, and we'll come right back.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we are back in New York. We're going to go directly back to Milwaukee because Milwaukee seems to be the busy place today. And I understand Kimberly Guilfoyle is with Rita. Rita, what's going on?
Yes, I am the lucky one here. We are, of course, in the heart of Milwaukee at the Republican National Convention. And I have with me here one of the superstars of this convention and, of course, of the Republican Party. And especially last night gave an amazing speech. You were incredible. Kimberly Guilfoyle, great to have you here, my friend.
Thank you so much, Rita. Great to be with you guys. Yes, it was an amazing evening. Really enjoyed it. I think we are just like hitting just our stride in terms of as a party and being inclusive and unity and the incredible Gold Star families. We had an amazing moment from Kai Trump, the granddaughter of President Trump, who asked to speak and talk about her grandfather and address the country, which was incredible, just 17 years old. And to be that composed and be able to take, a major stage like that was just amazing to see. And Don Jr., great speech. And, of course, J.D. Vance as well. So it was a really exciting, electric night. I'm really looking forward to this evening. The president, as has been reported, rewrote his speech after the assassination attempt. He's been working on it today. Really looking forward to those remarks. Eric Trump will be speaking tonight. Dana White will be introducing the president. We've got Kid Rock playing. I mean, it's going to be pretty amazing for the final night.
You know what I think is fitting? And you and I have been friends for a long time, Kimberly.
Yes.
I'm thinking of what a lineup here, too, because boy, is this president a fighter. And I think about, we've covered,
Yes.
How much, we've known the president. You've known him obviously so
20
well.
years now.
My
Yes.
goodness. To think about what he went through. And I thought it was kind of, very much epitomizing it by starting with Dana White, who's head, of course, of the
Right.
UFC. That's a fighter. He epitomizes fight and tough. And that's what this president showed time and time again. But boy, did he ever show it on Saturday.
He certainly did. And, his first thought, even after, being shot, and probably not even knowing, exactly what his condition is because you're in shock and the adrenaline is going, was to stand up and let the country know, let the people know that we're at that rally, that he was okay. His first thought was not about himself, but to actually reassure those that were watching and seeing this unfold live on the television. I remember, seeing it. I was watching the rally. Don and I were supposed to go to Pennsylvania. Our plans changed at the last minute, and I was just watching this happen. I was, following the rally on television in my office, and then I had to very sadly, unfortunately, called Don, who was out on a little daddy-daughter fishing thing with, his daughter Kai, who spoke and addressed the country. And I had to let him know that his father had been shot, and it was about 90 minutes before, we knew exactly how serious, what was happening, etc. But we all talked to him on the phone, and it was just, he was so nice and reassuring us again that he was okay, and just so complimentary about the, first responders there, the medical attention, the treatment, the hospital that he went to. And I mean, Don said it last night in his speech, which I thought was so compelling. He said, Trump tough. And that's what we saw.
How has it been for the family, Kimberly Guilfoyle? I mean, the whole country's been watching. I had tears in my eyes when I saw what happened. I can't imagine. Give us sort of a sense of just how difficult it has been and also how inspiring, I'll say even the last few days, to see him in the hall, too.
And can you imagine after an assassination attempt? And what really upset me is that the media was so reluctant to even actually call it what it was. They said, Trump's been grazed by a bullet. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's
grazed by a bullet, right?
It was clearly an assassination attempt. Like, why are you people so dishonest? And just the way he handled himself, the composure, the focus, and the strength. He's in wonderful spirits. He's really been enjoying the convention. He's just, he's remarkable. There's just nobody quite like him. And Don even said, wow, I knew my dad, was tough, but he told him, he's like, wow, you're a badass. Like, that is pretty incredible. But isn't that what you want in a president, a commander-in-chief that shows incredible strength in the toughest of times, in that moment where literally his life was almost taken, and he stood up to reassure the people and put that iconic, fist up to show he's a fighter and said, fight, fight, fight. That's not Joe Biden. That's how you know you really need somebody else in the White House, and that person is President Trump. That's the commander-in-chief that this country deserves. That is the man in the arena, literally, figuratively, at this moment. And tonight, the rest of the country is going to see it. And we have really been saying, hey, we have a place for you in this movement. It's not about partisan politics. It's about doing the right thing for the country. It's about the right person being in the Oval Office, the right people being in Congress and the United States Senate to really carry forward this America First movement and reawaken the American dream for this country.
Well, Kimberly Guilfoyle, you gave a rousing speech. John Jr. gave a rousing speech, and we cannot wait for tonight. It's so great to see you here, and we've been praying for you and your family.
Thank you. God bless. And I want to say thank you to all the listeners and viewers for all of your heartfelt condolences, love, prayers, and please know in this moment, God protected President Trump. He has a larger, greater plan for him, and let's all keep the prayers going to help put him in the path directly to the White House, and with God we can do it.
Absolutely. Our prayers are with you, my friend. John, back to you in New York. Wow.
Back to New York, and right now we're going to do hot news, sponsored by Goya with Lisa Ritchie.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And here is the latest hot news headlines from Goya. Conservative political commentator Lou Dobbs has died at the age of 78. He had a varied career in radio, television, and was also a regular columnist as well as an author. He's survived by his wife Debbie, a former CNN sports anchor, and their 4 children. It is day 4 of the Republican National Convention, and former President Donald Trump will accept the party's nomination for president tonight. He said that he has revised his speech for this evening after the assassination attempt last weekend when a bullet struck his ear. While President Biden self-isolates at his home in Delaware after testing positive for COVID, one of his top campaign officials isn't sharing their polls claiming to show Biden can win the 2024 race. Quinton Folk says it doesn't matter if voters go to the polls because of Biden or because of Kamala Harris. And those are the hot headlines from Goya.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
John Catsimatidis in New York. Some more breaking news, right? Judge Weinberg, why don't we go to you for the breaking news?
United States Court of Appeals has blocked the President Biden's attempt to spend more money and give him student debt relief. Everybody knows the United States Supreme Court has made it very clear it's unconstitutional. President Biden does not have the right to do this. He keeps trying. It's an election gambit, and it's now been blocked by the United States Court of Appeals.
Yeah, but the Democrats will blame the Republicans.
Well, of course. They'll say, we're going to give you free money, and
Tony Carbonetti, it's your fault.
When you do something you're not supposed to do.
I didn't get my student loan reduced.
When you do something you're not allowed to do, it's my fault.
All right.
Okay.
Let's go back to Milwaukee. Rita, I believe you got John Solomon with you?
And joining us now here at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee with some big breaking news is John Solomon, the founder of Just the News. John, fill us in on the latest that you know on the shooting, because, boy, are there a lot of troubling details.
There is a very big development today. The House Judiciary Committee revealed that multiple Secret Service whistleblowers, people who were in on the planning on the security, have come forward to Congress to say that the FBI, the Secret Service, and the local police knew the Secret Service would be short of personnel for covering that event. Rather than ask for more resources, they tried to manage with what they have, and that's likely what led to one of the biggest security lapses in the history of the Secret Service. The fact that whistleblowers have come forward, asked for congressional protection, provided pre-briefing memos. They now have the pre-briefing memos for this event, according to Jim Jordan. That is going to be a major, major turn in this investigation. It's going to probably increase the calls for the leader of the Secret Service to step aside.
So let's get this clear. In the briefing memo, it said what? We are understaffed? Explain that.
Yes, what Jim Jordan, I'm at the mercy of Jim Jordan's description right now, but what he said is between the memos and the testimony of these whistleblowers that the Secret Service went into the event at Butler, Pennsylvania, knowing it was short-staffed, that it didn't have the normal resources to cover an event like that, particularly an outdoor event, which, as you know, is much more resource-intensive. So how much where the resources were, where the labs were, we don't know yet. But the very first time you and I talked, the first thing we said is this is going to come down to, I bet you, resource issues. I think that's what we're finding out. They didn't have enough people to cover the event, and they didn't cry uncle. They should have spoke up. Instead, they put the president's life in jeopardy.
What do we know also about the shooter? Because we know that he was spotted. What now? We're finding out an hour beforehand. Explain all the huge missteps. It is, even if they didn't have a lot or have enough, they still made the basic, it seems like, investigation 101. They dropped the ball. But an hour beforehand?
If this venue was a Broadway theater, there would have been two lights going back and forth over him, the big guide lights. People saw him acting erratically, trying to get up onto the roof. His parents reported him missing and called the police in the local vicinity saying, we're worried about that. He's spotted on the roof. When he's spotted on the roof, an officer has to falls because he's trying to get his gun because the shooter tries to aim his gun at him. That speeds up the time by which the shooter then goes and sits down and tries to shoot the president. And in those few moments, it does not appear from what we know now that the detail at the front was aware that a shooter was on the roof. There wasn't radio comms to the front, as far as we can tell. Otherwise, you would have saw those agents move a lot quicker than they did. They moved quickly once they heard the shots. But they could have taken the president off the stage after that first warning came in. That's where Congress has really drawn a circle around the details right now. They're very worried about that.
What do we know about the fact that the shooter's parents called up that morning and said he's missing? It's a 20-year-old guy. You wouldn't think they'd be panicking if your 20-year-old son. Clearly, there's something more to the story. What do we know?
Well, first, let's remember what the parents are. They're both social workers. They're trained in extraordinary capabilities, and they know when someone's trouble because that's their job to know. Something caused them to be concerned about their son's disappearance. They're not saying what yet. We don't have a lot of information about that, but we do know that they made a call to police about an hour or two before the shooting occurred, I believe, reporting their son missing, his car missing, and that is where the trail ends right now. They're almost certainly going to be interviewed by Congress. They've been interviewed by the FBI. At some point, we'll get access to some of that information. Next week, the FBI director, Chris Wray, is on the Hill. It was supposed to be a traditional oversight hearing. It's going to turn predominantly to what we now know about what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Is it true also that the 20-year-old shooter, was also getting materials that said hazardous mailed to his home? I mean, this is like, and no criminal history as far as we know.
No criminal history.
Motive? Do we know motive?
We don't know a motive, and we don't see much social footprint from him either. A small donor footprint, very little social. He seemed to have lived in anonymity until this moment when he steps out and tries to shoot the president. I have not confirmed the reports. There are reports about the hazardous materials. We have not been able to get those confirmed yet by the sources that we know, so we'll keep working on that. But there were red blinking lights in this boy's family, in this young man's family, red blinking lights at the event for about an hour before. That's the amazing thing. When you wind back the timeline, it's almost an hour of time where various people are coming forward saying, hey, something's going on with this guy, keep an eye on him. The Secret Service has changed its story a little bit today, say he was a person of interest, and then he became a threat the second we saw him on the roof shooting. Well, maybe at the moment he climbed up, maybe that should have moved to threat sooner and they could have stopped him. There are going to be lots of learnings from this. This is one of the biggest multi-failures that the Secret Service has ever had to deal with.
Yeah, this is a catastrophe of monumental measures. There is no doubt. John Solomon, thank you for being here. Boy, at the Republican National Convention, everybody's talking about this. And, of course, tonight we are enduring massive security here because of obviously just in general, but it is locked down like never before,
probably
given what we're talking about
right now.
Yeah, thank goodness. Right. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Rita. Good to be with you.
Well, we're back to New York, John Catsimatidis, and I understand there's some other breaking news that Kamala Harris is vetting at least 4 possible running mates for vice president. Already? I mean, Caesar is not dead yet.
Well,
Caesar's not dead.
They're trying to get rid of him by Sunday.
Okay,
they're trying to get rid of him by Sunday.
Andy Beshear, you know Andy Beshear?
Yes, governor of Kentucky. He's on my list to actually replace
Andy
her.
Beshear is very good. I know him. He came and shared a cigar with us one afternoon.
He's going to be replacing
on
Biden.
Saturday. And the other possibility is Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania.
Also on my list to replace Biden. I have Kentucky, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Maryland. One of those four governors will replace Biden.
Right now, let's go back to Rita Cosby in Milwaukee. And you got Ralph Reed, Rita?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Yes, I do. Boy, and everybody's talking about who's going to also be on the Democratic side. But joining us here, John, as we continue live with our great Katz and Cosby coverage from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, we have Ralph Reed, who is, of course, the head of Faith and Freedom Coalition. And Ralph, first off, I just got to get you to react to the big news that just happened, that we're hearing that Kamala Harris, there are reports she's vetting 4 people for her vice president, so she's already measuring the drapes. Your reaction to what's going on the Democratic side?
Wow, I guess they're not even going to wait until the body is cold, huh? I mean, it's pretty incredible. You know, Rita, it's funny. I've been doing this a long time. This is my 10th convention. It'll be my 12th presidential campaign, and there's the old Mark Twain line, which is, I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Democrat. But there is a sense in which it's usually the Republicans who organize themselves into a circular firing squad. But this time it seems to be the Democrats. And I don't think there are a lot of good options, candidly. I don't think keeping Biden is a good option. I don't think throwing an incumbent president under the bus and choosing his even less popular vice president is a good option. And I don't think if you want to motivate black voters, I don't think it's a good idea to throw under the bus the first African-American vice president in American history.
Oh, no, she says she's president, it looks like.
So I just think they're not holding a very good hand. They probably should have thought about this before, but they didn't. They rallied around the flag. They lied to the American people. They deceived people. And now they're reaping what they've sowed.
You know, Ralph Reed, head of the Faith and Freedom Coalition, definitely one of the biggest religious leaders in America. You've been messaging back and forth with President Trump. I know you know him. We think about, John and I were just talking when it happened, when the shooting happened. It is by God's grace that he's alive. I mean, you look at that. What went through your mind, and what will you say when you see him, hopefully in a few hours from now, Ralph?
Well, we had an event this morning, Rita, headlined by J.D. Vance. It was in the Pfister Hotel, which is where the president is staying, and I've been in touch with him. And we had 1,000 evangelicals, including about 200 in overflow, that held hands and were led in prayer for his protection, for his speech tonight, and that God would use him as an instrument in a second term. And I'm not a prophet. I'm a political actor. Okay, I'm a recovering political operative. So I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. I'm not trying to prophesy, but I have always felt that it was hard to come up with an explanation for Donald Trump apart from the fact that God had his hand on him. I mean, think about it. This is the first person to ever be elected president of the United States who wasn't either a cabinet member, senator, governor, House member, or a war hero. This is a guy who wasn't in politics, got on a golden escalator in Trump Tower, rode down, and literally took over one of the 2 major parties like he was buying a golf resort out of bankruptcy. And then you look at how he performed, the economy, how women did, how blacks did, how Hispanics did, the lowest unemployment, the highest increase in personal wealth, how strongly he stood with Israel, flipping the Supreme Court so that it became think about this for a minute. This is the first conservative Supreme Court that we've seen in our lifetimes. There's probably no one listening right now who's ever seen a conservative court because there hasn't been one.
And yet the Democrats are coming out, and even folks from the Biden administration today, Kamala Harris just a little bit ago, saying that they have a problem with this Supreme Court because they're not happy with the decisions. How big of an issue is that threat to, to our values that they would go after even the Supreme Court.
I mean, honestly, Rita, I know they're desperate and they're doing everything they can to fire up a base that is demoralized and almost in a coma. But depending upon what is formally announced, and we don't even know at this point if it will be announced by Biden or Harris, I assume it will be by Biden. But if they walk into the punch of calling for a packing of the Supreme Court or even draconian term limits, this is an old playbook. Remember, this is what Franklin Roosevelt tried to do. Franklin Roosevelt, when he was doing the New Deal, and the legacy conservative court appointed by the Republicans who preceded him was striking down New Deal legislation, he had a plan to pack the courts. It backfired on him so badly in the 1938 midterm elections that no one has tried to do it for 80 years. If Joe Biden tries to do that, it will backfire just as miserably. They're running around saying we're a threat to democracy. We're a threat to the stability of our constitutional order, and they want to pack the courts and just take it over. That will be a big turnout issue for us, Rita.
Yeah, I think so too. And by the way, the polls, there is an energy and there is a buzz here at the Republican National Convention like I have never seen. Ralph Reed, we love having you here, sitting right beside us here at the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee. John, back to you.
Back here in New York, and out of New York right now, we're going to have Dick Morris. Dick, where are you? Smart guy, friend of the Democrats, a friend of the Republicans. He managed Bill Clinton, managed our President Trump. Dick Morris, what the heck is going on? I mean, there's so much confusion around, so many things happening. What say you?
Well, the bullet that was aimed at Donald Trump missed his head, but it did hit Joe Biden and has killed his candidacy for president. Before the assassin fired, there was a sense among the Democrats that they had to do something, that Biden was deteriorating in polling, that his debate performance was pathetic, and that they cast around for another candidate. The insurrection had largely been quelled, partially because there weren't enough people signing on, and partially because there was no clear alternative, and nobody thought Harris would be any better than Biden. But after the assassination attempt, everything changed. And all of a sudden, the Democrats were now willing to say out loud and in public that Biden needed to go. The poll numbers so changed as a result of the assassination attempt, and the favorability of Trump so increased that the hesitancy that many Democrats felt about getting Biden out of the race has vanished. And shortly after the attempted assassination, Congressman Adam Schiff from California, who's the party's nominee for senator from California in this election, publicly urged Biden to pull out. And everybody on Capitol Hill knows that he's Nancy Pelosi's protege. So if Adam Schiff wanted that to happen, Pelosi could not be far behind. And I think that has led to an increasingly public sense of the need to get rid of Biden. Now, that coincides with Biden getting COVID. And here the poetic irony is incredible. Biden is president because of COVID, and he's about to be ousted from office because of COVID. It won't really be because of COVID, but that's the excuse that Biden would use. That's the face-saving mechanism for him to pull out without admitting that he was a lousy candidate and a worse president. And Kamala Harris will be the Democratic candidate, and she'll get massacred. Trump could carry more than 40 states.
Now, is Kamala Harris, if President Biden bows out, is Kamala Harris going to be the nominee, in your opinion?
Yes, not the president. Biden won't resign the White House, but he will withdraw from the race, and Kamala Harris will be the nominee.
Rumors out there saying because President Trump picked J.D., that they may pick Josh Shapiro.
Oh, I don't see the connection, but Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Well, Ohio's next to Pennsylvania, and they're going to use J.D. to take Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there's always that sense. There's always that speculation. I don't have no idea who he'll name. But I want to say this about J.D. Vance. What's impressive about him is that he personifies a new ethnic group in the Trump coalition, hillbillies.
He said it the other night, us hillbillies.
I know he did. But before J.D. Vance said it, nobody was willing to say it. It was like using the N-word in public.
Yeah.
But now Vance is using the H word accurately to describe those voters. And I think really Trump has discovered a new ethnic group. And it's the key to carrying the swing states. And it's brilliant of him to choose Vance, brilliant of him to choose somebody who is not only ethnically part of that group, but an advocate for it, the exposure of how difficult their lives are, and giving Vance a platform to talk about it has really broken new intellectual and political ground.
Well, Dick Morris, thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Breaking news, WABC.
Well, what a day. More breaking news just called in by one of my friends in Atlantic City at the Borgala Hotel. 30 police cars have surrounded the place. There's armed man in the Borgala, and he's threatening to shoot everybody, and God help us. Right now, why don't we go to a break, and then we're going to go back to Milwaukee with Rita Cosby, and let's take that break right now.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, let's go back to Milwaukee with Rita Cosby. She has Congressman Tim Burchett.
And joining us now here from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee is Congressman Tim Burchett. Congressman, there are so many questions today about the shooting. We're now even hearing information that the shooter was seen as a suspicious person an hour before he took that shot at President Trump. This is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, and thank you so much. I'm not going to look at you. You're very attractive, and it makes me uncomfortable because I'm a very happily married man.
No, you're so
I just
sweet.
want you to know, man.
Thank you.
You're wonderful.
By the way, I'll take all the compliments I can get because it's been a busy day here through the crowds and security. Thank you, sir.
But you're so correct. You know, he had a rangefinder, and the only thing you use a rangefinder for, if you're either hitting golf balls or you're shooting a rifle. And obviously, there was no golf course around there. A lot of questions. If the government doesn't want us to think there's a cover up, then dadgummit, they ought to come out with the facts now. That's why on Saturday night when it happened, I called Chairman Comer, and he always takes my call. He's a good man. I said, let's get in there on Monday. Last Monday, and let's bring them in. Let's have a hearing right then. I said, to heck with I'm going to use a little stronger language. I'll say, the heck with the convention. Let's get to business. American public demands it. And he said, well, we've got the rules, 72-hour rule and all that. And I said, and I get it. Pelosi never followed the dadgum rules. She suspended them the first day she was in. That's why they could bring bills to the floor that never went through committee. Anyway, now we're going to do it this Monday. Mayorkas is trying to block that, and Chairman Comer has subpoenaed her. And I hope if they say she's coming, but if she doesn't, I hope that we exercise our rights and bring her in if we have to by force, because it's the rules, it's the law, it's the Constitution. We're allowed that, and I'm afraid we just don't have the guts to follow through with some of this stuff, and we need to.
Let me ask you. You're obviously talking about the director of the Secret Service.
Yes, ma'am.
Kim Cheadle, who was being chased by. You probably saw the scenes.
I saw
senators.
Marsha from Tennessee.
And Senator Barrasso. All of them.
Yes,
she is dodging questions. She keeps not having any accountability,
which makes it worse.
It makes
You're
it
in the
really
media.
worse. It makes it horrible.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
what can be done if she decides not to appear on Monday? I'm telling you, there is such anger in this country, Congressman, that there are still no answers today, and all we're hearing is finger pointing.
Yes, ma'am.
And it defies logic that there was someone who was suspicious an hour before cited. Then there's the photos. Then they see him on the roof.
Yep.
And now we still don't know, days later, how this could happen.
Absolutely. And it just shows really how gutless Congress is and how disrespectful and dishonest this administration is. Because, as you know, their constant dealings with us in Congress have been just delay. And so now what we see is that what we see is that they will try to move it past the election. Now you're saying, I think the president maybe
What move past the election?
The bringing in the witnesses and the experts and everything.
Oh, that's shocking. So they may not want to bring them in before the election?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They want to delay it. Americans want their pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our attention span. And so you move it a little farther out, and the fever dies down. And, as I used to say when I was mayor, there'll be another wreck on the interstate tomorrow. And that's the truth. So we've got I just feel like we need to go ahead with it on Monday, full steam ahead, have the hearing, start asking the tough questions.
Should she resign?
Oh, absolutely. She should have been fired. There's no question. To have those people have a guy on a perimeter, there was no communication between the local law enforcement and the Secret Service, apparently. Why wasn't Trump pulled off the stage when you've been at these events?
Yes.
You've been at 1,000 of them, I'm sure.
Yes, I have.
And, if there's a backfire on a car, boom, they move. If there's a suspicious person in the crowd, they don't. And they're never on time. They never. And the reason is somebody's gotten through security that shouldn't be there. There's a suspicious person. There's a suspicious package. Somebody's acting weird. There's been a threat. They're going to double check everything. And they always keep them backstage for just a little longer because they're going through stuff. And they didn't this time. They had this guy out 20 minutes ahead of time with a freaking rangefinder on a building, and they allowed President Trump almost met his maker.
Unbelievable. Well, Congressman Tim Burchett, you get to the bottom of it. It's great to see you here at the RNC.
Gosh, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
Well, back to New York, and Tony Carbonetti, Judge Weinberg, and John Catsimatidis, Rita Cosby out of the great city of Milwaukee. What do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America. We need God's blessing.